Committee. Thank you to Council President Harden, Council Pro Tem Dorans, Council Member Brown for being here today, and thank you to Council President for co-hosting. A reminder, this hearing is currently live on YouTube and Facebook and is also live and being recorded for rebroadcast on CTV, Columbus's government television channel 3. The rebroadcast schedule is available at www.columbus.gov. Last Tuesday, we held a hearing to receive updates about Columbus's alternative crisis response systems and our partners. It was a great opportunity to learn more about our systems, hear testimony from invited and public speakers, and to outline Council's vision on next steps for alternative crisis response and non-police response in Columbus. As I said last week, I'm the chair of the Public Safety Committee for the Columbus City Council, and my number one priority is the public safety and well-being of our residents. Public safety is not a privilege, it is a right. And all year, you have heard announcements of incredible programs and funding opportunities, press conferences about new initiatives and operations, and witnessed various community events like Public Safety Week in June, all related to increasing public safety in our community, in all neighborhoods of our community, because everyone deserves the right to feel safe in Columbus. When we think about what helps increase public safety, we have to consider all the tools in our toolbox. Violence prevention and reduction programs and initiatives like the ones that we will hear today are critical to our overall safety system. I look forward to hearing from all of our presenters, guest speakers, and public speakers. I look forward to continuing the work of Crime Prevention Month, and so we're excited to have the opportunity to hear from everybody today. But before I do that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here today for a really important conversation about how we keep each other safe in our community. As the chair said, when we have violence in our community, it necessitates that we use every tool in the toolbox, that we obviously focus on more police engagement, and this council has done that by supporting the largest police classes in our city's history, by making sure that we have officers that can work even overtime like we passed last night, and making sure that those officers are well equipped, and nearly $100 million in the capital budget. But it also means highlighting, uplifting, and funding many other forms of community safety. And so that's what the conversation will be about today. It's about acknowledging that in a growing community, we have issues, but we also have amazing programs and amazing people and amazing organizations that are standing up and pushing back and supporting our young people. What we have to recognize is that there are many different issues, or many different causes to the violence that we see in our community. Inequalities, poverty, a state house that has allowed way too many guns on our streets. And again, what I think will come out of this hearing is a reflection of the work that is being done in spite of to keep Columbus safe. So look forward to hearing updates from the departments, from the administration. Thank you to the safety chair, to our Division of Police, to Public Health, and to our new Office of Violence Reduction. And also to all those community organizations who truthfully were stepping up and doing the work have been doing the work for many, many years. So thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Council President. I'd also like to give space. Do you have anything, Councilmember Brown? Okay, just want to make sure. So thank you to all of our presenters here today. We have Public Safety Director Kate Bisciotti, Office of Violence Prevention Director Rena Shack, the CPD Dialogue Team Commander Dwayne Mabry, Columbus Public Health Administrator Marion Stuckey, right? Yeah, there we go. Columbus Violence Reduction Director Molly Robbins, and the CRPD Youth Development Division Assistant Director Don Turnage. We have a spectacular lineup of speakers and presentations. We will then hear from a few invited guest speakers before moving into the public testimony hearing portion of the hearing this evening. I will now turn it over to Director Kate Bisciotti, Public Safety Director. Thank you.
Council President Harden, Safety Chair Remy, other council members, thank you for the opportunity to update you on some of our violence prevention efforts in the city. With the vision, leadership, and support of Mayor Ginther and this council, the city is forging important new ground in the fight against violence. 2 innovative programs that will be discussed this evening fall under the umbrella of public safety. The first is Columbus Violence Reduction, or CVR. It's Columbus's adaptation of the group violence intervention model. CVR is an unprecedented partnership between our community members, law enforcement agencies, and social service providers, all united by a common goal to stop violence and keep our city's highest risk residents safe, alive, and out of prison. CVR brings together law enforcement, community members, and social service providers to engage directly with groups whose members are most likely to shoot or be shot. CVR is not purely a law enforcement approach. It draws equally on the moral voice of the community, a strong support and outreach structure, and formal and informal consequences for violence. We have cautioned from the start that this is not a quick fix approach. It's a sustained effort over time, but our early results are very promising. Molly Robbins leads the CVR team and will share more about the program and those early results in a few minutes. Another initiative we are investing in is our Columbus Police Dialogue Team. The Dialogue Team was formed as a part of the division's efforts to improve police engagement with people exercising their First Amendment rights to speech and peaceful assembly. After the summer of 2020, the community charged us with finding a new way to handle civil unrest. We then charged the Division of Police with that mission, and I couldn't be happier with the work that they did and what they brought back to us. You will hear from Commander Mabry and other members of the Dialogue team about their groundbreaking work shortly. But first, I'd like to hand it off to Director Shack from the Office of Violence Prevention.
Thank you very much, Director Prashadi. Thank you to President Hardin, Chair Remy, Council Members Brown and Dorans for having me here today. The Office of Violence Prevention is honored to be the first of its kind in the state of Ohio and a new part of the city's holistic strategic plan to combat and reduce violence, focusing on prevention and intervention. Across the nation, there are approximately 30 offices of violence prevention. Most, like ours, are in their infancy phase and are working together under the National Offices of Violence Prevention Network to learn and grow from each other and national models. The Office of Violence Prevention's purpose is to further efforts to make Columbus the safest big city in the country by offering oversight and coordination assistance to the violence prevention initiatives here in Columbus. This city has excellent programming in existence to combat and reduce violence. However, the city would benefit from a comprehensive strategy to coordinate efforts between existing programs. This enables us to see where our efforts are being focused, what the outcomes of those efforts have been, and where we might increase our resources to improve those outcomes. The Office of Violence Prevention will serve as the city's coordination center for violence prevention resources. The office will evaluate existing programming and share information. We will also be responsible for collecting data and conducting research to capture a clearer picture as to where the City of Columbus stands with violence and prevention efforts, as well as where further resources may be needed. We will work collaboratively with city departments, public and private partners, and the Columbus community to further our efforts. The Office of Violence Prevention will also undertake a public education campaign about violence in Columbus, its impact, and what the city and its partners are doing to combat and reduce that violence. Here you can see a view of the OVP organizational structure as it currently stands. A brief timeline of significant events for the Office of Violence Prevention is up on the screen. It was through the Mayor's 2022 declaration of gun violence as a public health crisis, followed by Columbus Public Health's months of intense research and resulting recommendations, that our office was born. In March of 2023, Mayor Ginther appointed me as the director and officially announced the office. In April, we were able to add Deputy Director Dr. Joanne Lunsford. Together, she and I bring over 30 years of combined criminal justice experience and relationships to our roles. Over the summer, together we attended anti-violence events, met with city officials, and learned from community members. We also launched our social media, got to work hiring the rest of our team, and began assessing the violence prevention space here in the city. In August, we hired and onboarded 3 amazing community relations coordinators. Over the course of the last 6 months, together we have attended over 250 events, interviews, or community meetings. 140 of those have been since the addition of our community relations coordinators just in August. In September alone, our team has attended the National Offices of Violence Prevention Conference to learn from other Offices of Violence Prevention offices across the nation. We held a community conversation on violence prevention for over 200 community members, where we gained valuable feedback from our community on what they would like to see the city doing differently or how they would like to be involved. And we co-hosted a historic gun buyback in partnership with the Columbus Division of Police and Division of Public Safety on September 30th. That gun buyback resulted in 344 firearms being turned in, which included 25 assault weapons and 9 sawed-off shotguns. We, of course, could not do this work without our amazing team of community relations coordinators. Together, they bring decades of combined subject matter, public service, and lived experience. Each is currently assigned to 2 Division of Police zones and will serve as a liaison between our office and the community in those assigned zones. They've been hard at work to build relationships and taking an inventory of the anti-violence resources in each of their areas. Although our office is still in its beginning stages, we hope to leave a lasting impact on Columbus by creating a citywide joint strategy for violence prevention that includes community input, measuring the impact of current programming and implementing improvements, building a system of data sharing that is accessible to city partners and the public, taking on policy work to advise on new policies to reduce gun violence and increase gun safety measures, undertaking a public campaign to educate the public on the landscape of anti-violence resources in Columbus, and by engaging with the community to be a direct link between the city and our citizens. We are excited to take on these heavy tasks and to work with everyone here to change the narrative and combat violence in new and creative ways. Thank you very much. And now I will pass it to Molly Robbins to the dialogue team.
Council President Hardin, Chair Remy, and Councilmember Dorians and Brown, thank you very much for having us here to have this opportunity to talk about the dialogue team. Over a year ago, the Columbus Police Dialogue Unit started with 2 officers wearing blue vests, and they just walked into a crowd to give it a try. They were empowered with the knowledge they gained in Europe with no idea how or if it would work on the corner of Walk and Don't Walk in the city of Columbus, Ohio. Fast forward to today, we have 54 members on our team that include officers and supervisors. They have over 70 deployments. They've also conducted a week-long training to prepare officers for this unique role. It's the first of its kind for any police agency in the United States, and it was developed right here in Columbus, Ohio. Professor Clifford Stott spent a month in August here in Columbus. During that time, we learned that the Columbus model, a proactive tiered approach, is applying the science unlike any police agency in the world. Professor Stott is ecstatic about how these dialogue-led strategies are being applied here in Columbus. The Columbus model puts the community first and builds police legitimacy, moving from deterrence and fear and toward engagement and dialogue. The Columbus model breaks away from an us versus them mentality and pushes us towards a concept of us and them. It is our fundamental duty to facilitate the First Amendment rights of everyone through balanced and measured approach. We will maximize our capacity to proactively engage with the public and increase our ability to de-escalate tensions and, if necessary, deliver targeted and proportionate uses of force. Now, just real quick, I want to cover 2 things, and I want to introduce 2 of our all-star leaders here as a member of the dialogue team to cover some lessons we've learned and the buy-in we've gotten across the Division of Police. And so, Sergeant Colin Straub and Sergeant Steve Dyer.
Hello, Sergeant Dyer. So, lots of lessons over the last year. And, sometimes a high five isn't a high five, or sometimes it's more than that. But we learned it's about perception. And we teach that, dialogue doesn't try and find the truth. and try and find your perception. And once we learn that, that's when dialogue can begin. We also had a lot of lessons learned, with the blood tribe, the land grant, high tensions, the importance of deploying our inside-out approach. We de-escalate and solve problems from inside the crowd, not from outside. We do our best work before, but we don't always get that opportunity.
And with regard to how this has been received in the division, there's two things cops hate: change and when things stay the same. When we started this team, we had 3 different responses from officers. Some thought this was stupid, not for them. Some thought it was a good idea, but not for them. And others thought, it was a good idea and it was for them. So we started with those officers. Over the past year, officers have seen the use of dialogue at First Amendment events, and they've seen that it does work. The thing about cops is they don't care where a solution comes from, as long as it does work, and they've seen that here in Columbus. Today, the sentiment about dialogue has shifted within the division. Officers get it, they see that it works, and we rarely hear that this is stupid response anymore.
So the next phase of our project is to bring Professor Stott here for a longer term. And during that phase, we want to use the project to evaluate this science, which originated in Europe, but we want to see how it works in the US context. And so the best place to do that is a crossroads of America, and that's Columbus, Ohio. This evaluation will include peer agencies from both the US and Europe coming to Columbus and seeing what we're doing on the corner of Walk and Don't Walk here in Columbus, Ohio. Our future plans also include learning from and collaborating with other cities around the world and around Ohio. We have already been working here in Central Ohio, and we've opened up a training opportunity for every agency in Ohio that we implemented a month ago. But we've also been working with places like Seattle and the Ohio State Patrol and many of our local partner agencies. We have a team heading next week to Charlotte-Mecklenburg to learn about their constructive conversations teams and how they utilize that in Charlotte. We're working on collaboration with a major U.S. metropolitan city on the East Coast. We hope to announce that soon, but we have a collaboration with them because they're interested in the work that's being done here in Columbus. So word is getting out, and we're having successes, but we believe that there's much more to learn over the next year where we can improve and make things better here in Columbus, Ohio when it comes to First Amendment activity. And then on a final note, we have been quite busy. In the last 48 hours, activities around the world impact us here in Columbus. And so we have seen how those have impacted us here, and our team has been deployed to address people who want to voice their concerns about events happening in the Middle East. So.
Thank you very much, Commander. Next, we have an overview with Marianne from Columbus Public Health.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Thank you, Council President and Council members. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak more about Columbus Public Health and trauma, and that's really at the underlying cause of a lot of things that we're seeing each and every day. Next slide, please. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I was just kind of asked to define what is trauma. And so when we talk about trauma, we're really talking about something, and this can be really anything that happens to the body, and we're talking about body-based responses. It's really not something that's happening in our head that is too fast, too much, and too soon. And it really overwhelms our ability to cope. It could be a car accident, it can be a shooting, it can be any number of things that takes place. And it really gets us in a survival mode. So each person's experience of trauma is unique, and it is not a flaw or a weakness. And I'll just repeat that because I think oftentimes people can feel like it's something wrong with them, but it is actually a natural response to a situation that is too much. And it's basically a response to something that is perceived as dangerous and something that takes away our ability to feel safe. It can be inaccurate, it could be accurate, it could be imaginary, and again, it just really depends on that person and their perception of safety and their history. We have found that relationships are the #1 buffer to psychological trauma overall. So here's just a quick infographic about trauma, and we look at it in 3 different ways. So there's trauma that happens in the household. This can be things like abuse, incarceration, all kinds of things in that realm, bullying, but we also look at the community. So when we're talking about community violence, safety issues, intergenerational trauma, And finally, we look at the environment. We're recovering from COVID. That's a great example of an environmental trauma, natural disasters, hurricanes. There's so many different levels that we can experience traumatic experiences, and it affects us in many different ways and throughout our family histories. So when we talk about becoming trauma responsive, there's really a few phrases that we use. So when we're becoming trauma uninformed to informed, it's really about asking not what's wrong with someone, but what happened to them. So until we can get to that critical question, we're really getting to the part about becoming trauma informed. But for us, it's really about becoming trauma responsive, which means how did this person survive through whatever they experienced? What was it that helped them get through? And even if they're experiencing behaviors that are not effective, that might have helped them survive whatever they were experiencing. And it's also about honoring that survival and letting people know that everyone can heal and recover no matter what they've been through in life. So I'll just talk about 2 out of many neighborhood social services programs. So the Voice partnership with Rec and Parks and Grant Hospital provides intensive wraparound services with both an interventionist and a social worker. We have several really promising results that have happened year to date from that partnership, and I know Don will talk about this more too. But just to highlight a few of the clients that we've been able to do interventions with, 75% of those clients were discharged successfully, 50% of those clients were employed, and then less than 3% were not re-injured due to the violent crime. And we're currently looking for expansion opportunities with other hospitals in addition to Grant as well. And then another program I'll highlight is our Linden Anti-Violence Team. This is one of our newer programs, which is really a place-based violence reduction program meant to really engage the community and really get to know some of the vision and the wants and desires of the community. So we have an upcoming community listening session, again, to be in partnership with community about what their hopes and dreams are. And we'll look forward to an annual barbecue each and every year just to build that sense of community. So thank you so much for your time. And that's it for me.
Next up, we have Columbus Violence Reduction Director Molly Robbins.
Thank you for having me, President Hardin, Chair Ramey, council members Padilla, Brown, and Durans, and also thank you, Director Prashadi, for having me here. I wanted to talk today, obviously, about Columbus violence reduction. In a nutshell, our mission is to reduce the violence and improve the quality of lives to those that we serve, as well as to the community in general. With that, the community, or the Columbus Violence Reduction is based on a national network of safe communities. Director Prashadi spoke to that. And it's a group violence intervention model. It's evidence-based, nationally recognized violence intervention strategy brings together a network of support. So the prongs of the approach are law enforcement, community members, and social service providers dedicated to keeping our residents safe, alive, and out of prison. And so that's our overarching intent, is to keep people safe, alive, and out of prison. Those are our outcomes and how we'll address our successes and where we need to make changes and do better. Overall, it's a focused deterrence model, and so what that means is that 0.05% approximately of our community is generating a large percent, about 60 to 70% of the serious violence in Columbus, and so we understand from that that neighborhoods are not violent, individuals can be, and there are reasons behind that, some of which Marion just spoke to, but instead of addressing entire neighborhoods or communities, if we can figure out who the individual people are that are generating the violence, we can work specifically with them. So that being said, it ends up being a proactive message from law enforcement. And so before you get to a point of needing to enforce, we're doing some prevention and specifically some intervention on the front end. So with that said, it's a three-pronged approach. Community moral voice, social services, and law enforcement. The community moral voice is something that is super important to this strategy and something that we've spent a decent amount of time working with our community in general to figure out who can play a role in this. We understand that uplifting community members, understanding that many of them are already doing the work that we are trying to do. And so bringing them into that and legitimatizing their work and supporting their initiatives and the strategies that they're focusing on and providing resources and assistance in partnership with them is super important. And we all have a vested interest in ensuring or reducing violence in our communities. So that's a huge part of the approach is working with the community and understanding that together we can do a better job than doing this individually. We also understand that CVR or GVI models without a strong community moral voice is another law enforcement tactic, which is not the intention of this strategy. So a very important component of the model, it could look like pastors, it could look like coaches, neighbors, people with what we would call a license to operate or other lived experiences, services, business owners, anybody in the community that has a vested interest and an inherent ability to make a difference in reducing violence. So that's a very strong part of this model. Social service support speaks to services and resources. So if there are, sorry, I went ahead. If there are businesses that have counseling or treatment or provide services to any of our participants, we would reach out to them, and we've worked to establish partnerships with that. So a lot of the people that we work with are unable to and shouldn't have to wait for a linkage, and so we send someone somewhere, and then they have to sit on a waiting list. And so with CVR, we've established partnerships with the service providers, and so many of them have agreed to expedite the participants that we send to them so that they can get services immediately, understanding the urgency of the situations that some of the people we work with are facing. And then the third prong is the law enforcement. So I mentioned this is a proactive message from law enforcement, focusing on the very small percentage of people that are perpetuating or involved in violence. And so they're using their intelligence to identify who those individual people are. And then they are providing that information to us to do our work with. So that is where our referral stream comes from, is from law enforcement. Moving forward, we have two main intervention strategies. One is a custom notification and one is a call-in. So the easiest way to describe a custom notification is an individual intervention. And so this is law enforcement delivering the community, or in the community, the law enforcement message, which is that the community is tired of the violence. It has to stop. Everyone in our community wants to and deserves to be safe, alive, and feel comfortable moving throughout their community. That said, that they would like to do something different and offer a resource prior to enforcement having to happen. And so because of the serious nature of the violence, they are working together with federal, state, and local partners to enforce violence if it continues. But if they choose not to perpetuate violence or be involved after this message, then they should never hear from law enforcement again. If that participant agrees to work with the CVR team, then our team would come in and start our work, intervention work, and providing the resources and the mentorship and the support otherwise. This intervention happens in the community and in some senses up to the participant. Sometimes we go to their homes, sometimes we're in a parking lot somewhere, sometimes we're at a church, anywhere that that person is comfortable talking to us and receiving the message. That's the individual intervention. After that, we have the call-in session, which is a group intervention. And so this one looks a little bit different. It's a presentation. It opens up with the mayor talking about the expectation as relates to reducing violence and wanting and needing the city to be safe. And then it turns into sort of a law enforcement message. So the chief of police will open up that presentation, the U.S. attorney, and then the county prosecutor will speak about the law enforcement partnership that they have created to address group and gang gun violence. Should have also mentioned that these are adults that we're working with, and so there is that federal component to the law enforcement enforcement, should that be the case. That said, the message also from the police is wanting to do this differently and not get to the point of enforcement, to do work with someone on the front end. And so that's the proactive message, and that the law enforcement agencies care about them, want to help them and do something different. And so that message is embedded in there. After those speakers talk at the call-in session, you would also have somebody from our team who talks about what we do and what types of services we can help participants with. Also have a voice of pain, which is someone who has lost somebody to violence, a voice of redemption, and that's somebody that's lived the lifestyle, turned themselves around, and is encouraging and supportive of somebody changing their life around. And then a voice of aspiration that also is a lot of encouragement, love, and support. Also, the coroner talks about what it looks like from their perspective on the back end of group or gang gun violence. After that, the message is continued into a dinner. So we leave this presentation and go and we all share a meal together and talk with each other, and everybody realizes that we are all part of the community together and all play a role in wanting to reduce violence. At the call-in session, we've worked with probation and parole. These folks are oftentimes on probation or parole, so they're ordered into this to hear the message, and then the hope from there is that they choose to participate and work with us. So we aim to have about 15 to 20 participants hearing the message of the call-in session. That said, we have our second one coming up on October 17th and are looking forward to that. Other opportunities for engagement for Columbus violence reduction could look like scene response, and we're working to build that out so that we can be of support to some of the agencies and the people in the community that are already helping at scene response. And also our intervention team, like I mentioned, are people that have kind of the license to operate, the lived experience, and the ability to very easily connect with folks that might be experiencing this grief in these crisis situations. So just being there and being able to be a voice of reason and have some people that they're comfortable with talking is something else that we would do. Similar to hospital-based intervention, where we could do some custom notifications prior to a victim being released from the hospital, maybe in an effort to prevent retaliation, at least to stop group and gang violence after a shooting, and then also community events. So hopefully people have seen us out and about in the last year or so doing that. Couple updates. We started doing our, we had our hard set reset in April of 2023, and so between April and September, we have a total of approximately 51 participants. I say approximately just because things change on a day-to-day basis if somebody may not heed the message, but have heard the message, I should say. And then of those, right now, 84% are safe, alive, and out of prison, and those are our outcomes. Just a little bit about the types of things that we have helped people with, and our participants. Should also say we work with participants and also any influentials in their life. So if somebody says, like, my mom needs assistance, or I'm doing this with my brother, can you help him too? This offer of support stands for anybody that they believe would be beneficially supported or influential in their life, because these folks aren't working alone and aren't a lot of times they're doing things to try to help people that they love, and so we also want to help them. So things like food, transportation, education, counseling, housing assistance, health insurance, connection, clothing. Quick story just to say how those kind of work together. We had a participant that was living with his mother. His mother had a notice that she had to leave her apartment, couldn't pay, also had some outstanding bills, so even when utility bills, so when she moved, maybe unable to get electric cut on, we were able to help with all of that and get her to a different apartment. She also had a pet that she was not able to take to her new apartment, found somebody from our community moral voice that took the pet, and then also the participant then was more comfortable. We assisted him getting back in school. He's attending. Our interventionists are going to see him at school and working with the school to help with that. He was not going to school prior to our intervention, and part of that also had to do with he couldn't get a haircut, and so we helped him. A barbershop with the community moral voice helped with a haircut. So that's just kind of how those resources can get intertwined. And, you know, if you're not that familiar with the work and the understanding, like most of the people we're working with don't want to be living the lives that they're living, and so we have to figure out how to help them work through some of that. Things that are easy to us are not necessarily easy to them, and we consider that big, small stuff. And so we attempt to help with anything that needs to be. This offer of support is forever until somebody commits violence and enforcement occurs, and then obviously we can't intervene. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director. Next up, we have Columbus Recreation and Parks Apps Program Assistant Director Don Turnage.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you, President Harden, as well as Chair Councilperson Remy, as well as our Rec and Parks Councilperson, Councilman Brown, as well as Dorrance and Padilla. Also have with me today our Community Intervention Supervisor, Siobhan Thompson. Applying purpose and passion to service is what our APPS program stands for here at Columbus Recs and Parks. Want to first talk about our Reroute program. Reroute in collaboration with Columbus Public Health, it is a wraparound services provided to all families and focusing on the strength and base and as well as the needed, any needs that are provided or needed by the families. Our intervention and engagement are with our youth and in our community between the ages of 13 and 21. And this is a volunteer participation program in which this particular, as of today, we are servicing a total of 70 clients through our referral program. Our Cap City Experience program, we have that program throughout the city where we're empowering families and reconnecting communities by bringing the fun and entertainment and resources from community partners. We do offer free food, free entertainment, as well as an opportunity for a safe environment for our community members to enjoy the resources throughout various partners. During the summer of 2023, we had over 2,000 community members attend 4 Cap City festivals in our Far East, Maloney, Wedgwood, and Marion Franklin. We are looking forward to an expansion in 2024. And additionally, we did pass out 400 resources, tote bags, that were distributed throughout the events. Another one of our programs that I want to talk about is our Violence Outreach Intervention Community Engagement, which is VOICE, and we proudly, as you had heard, are participating in this with our Columbus, sorry about that, Public Health. And with that program, we currently have 43 participants, and the ages are between 18 and 40. We ensure that they receive follow-up medical services, housing assistance, employment assistance, and removing any educational barriers that may be there. This is a clinical-based service, again, additional to the with Grant Hospital. And this week, I'm proud to announce that our VOICE team is attending the National Recreation and Parks Association Conference in Dallas, where they are being awarded and bringing back to our great city the National Innovation in Health Award. Our youth program through CWOW. CWOW is the Center Without Walls. Our CWOW program for the Center Without Walls typically is between the ages of 6 to 12, and this is for access to recreation and locations throughout the city where walkable participation to community centers is not there, so we bring the recreation to the community. Year to date, our participation has been 12,109. Throughout that also is our Teen Impact, known as TIP. This has provided adult skill sets in getting our youth between the ages of 12 and 18 ready and prepared for that opportunity. Our year-to-date participation in a Teen Impact program is 2,330. Along with that is our City Leaders. Our City Leaders is an enrichment and mentoring program servicing the ages of 12 to 15. This is a cohort between August to April. The youth that participate in this will earn 61 hours of participation with a minimum of 51 to graduate. Average participation for this particular cohort is 7 to 10 per session. We are looking to participate and extend our CWOW program for an expansion, which is under review. Job Readiness. Our Job Readiness program, this is a 10-week summer workforce development program, ages 14 to 23. Through our Job Readiness program, we equipped our youth with tools and real-time work-life experiences. We also celebrate their employment success, including field trips, pool party, and at the end of the program, an employee award ceremony. In 2023, our summer of 287 applicants, we did have 204 complete the program, compared to 56 in 2022. Currently, we still have 93 youth still working, compared to 24 at the end of the program last year. And moving forward, our expectation and goals are to expand our service and support and our presence throughout the city, and fostering and enhancing a network of collaboration with Columbus City Schools, fortifying our partnership that contributes to our effort at making a meaningful contribution to the reduction of violence in our city. We cannot do this without the community as well as our partners, which you have heard today. We do remain steadfast in our commitment to bring the change as we rise together through Columbus Recs and Parks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assistant Director. Since we're kind of at that point where everybody's presented, we're going to move into some questioning. And I'll just start with you since you just finished up. How's funding for the program? Is it adequate? Do you need an expansion of funding in 2024? What are you looking for as we move forward?
Thank you, thank you. Yes, the funding for the expansion which have been submitted, we would be able to then increase our, we were able to increase our programming to usage of adding an additional 4 school, out-of-school, back-to-school programs, as well as out-of-school programs there too.
And how's the partnership been with Columbus City Schools? I mean, as far as building that relationship and
Yes,
and-
that partnership has been great. This is my first year as a director over the program, and I will say that the partnership has been great. We have come to the table on several occasions in which we know that servicing the same children has been our main focus, and we are continuing to build on that and develop any programs that will continue to provide purpose and opportunity.
All right, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Director Shack, wanted to talk with you a little bit about the Office of Violence Prevention and what role it will take with the summer safety grants process in 2024. Is that something that you intend to take an active role in next year?
I haven't really been involved in many discussions of that, but that's something that we could certainly consider.
Okay. And wanted to ask Commander Mabry, could you tell us a little bit, I know how you've briefed us on the partnership with the professor, but could you go into a little bit more detail about his work and how important this relationship is with your team?
Absolutely critical, and the month he spent here, a lot of it was to build relationships in the city and continue to build that relationship with the Glenn School at OSU. But in the midst of that, we had some shootings in the area that were controversial and evoked protest, and he was alongside us every step of the way and providing guidance and walking us through it and working out plans and talking about strategy, and we were able to make adjustments in real time. And so as he comes back, it'll be really important to continue that relationship and continue that evaluation. And so it's to help us improve every moment in real time is huge. And then just where we're trying to go in the next step is huge, because it's about how we engage with our community as a division and how we facilitate First Amendment activity and how we develop leaders. And so everyone is prepared. And so if an event happens in the future as extreme as a 2020 type event, everyone's prepared and we're all communicating, whether it's as a city, to make sure we're responding the right way in crisis. And so great work with him, and it's science-based, and it's great to have a leading expert here. And then just the resources he brings of other experts in his field, that as we tap into him, he taps into these other resources for us and bases us here. And what we've really seen is things are unique in Columbus, Ohio, that our peer agencies look at and go, wow, I can't believe you guys handled that in that way, and that's great stuff. We want to know more about that. And so the interest we have in Central Ohio, but across Ohio, but nationally and internationally, I think has even caught us off guard how much interest there's been there.
I'm going to turn it over to Council President.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you again to the administration for your presentation. Kind of following up on Councilmember Remy's first question around the budgets. Last week, when we had our alternative crisis, I asked just the funding that we set aside for alternative crisis. What I'm trying to do is paint a picture for the community of the total investments that we as a city are making, not just in traditional policing, but also these other tools that we talked about being in the toolbox. So, specifically for the Office of Violence Reduction, for the Columbus Violence Reduction, for APPS, for Ms. Marion Stuckey and CARES. Could you guys just tell me your approximate budgets for this so that we can kind of paint that picture of these additional resources that are going out into the community, not to even mention the nearly $20 million that we put out into the community this year in community grants?
Sure. Thank you, President Harden, for that question. I can begin. For the Office of Violence Prevention 2023 budget, we were given $4 million, and we've requested approximately the same for 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can go next. For 2023, our budget primarily consisted of personnel because we weren't doing individual participant work yet, and I've since requested for 2024 approximately $1.3 million to duplicate and grow the strategy.
Thank you. APPS. Sorry.
Sorry.
In approximate, I didn't send you that question ahead of time, so I apologize. to
Oh,
put you on
no
the spot.
problem. For our budget for our APPS program, that was $325,000. We have soon put in for $500,000.
And for Columbus Public Health, with our Right Response Unit and Mobile Crisis Response, they're about $1 million each.
Okay.
But we're also anticipating a need for $1.6 million for reroute in 2025.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And so again, I think that the point of that is to show that they ask you your values and say look at the budget, and so this is to me indication that we are putting real resources to these data-driven methods to keep people safe, and look forward as we go into budget season, having more conversations and understanding what those expansion opportunities and requests look like. So, thank you.
Do my colleagues have any questions this evening?
Councilmember Remy, you know I have questions. First, I want to apologize for running a little late. I had some mom duties, but I have a couple questions. First, for Director Robbins, one thing that strikes me is, I've worked with young people my entire career, and when I think about interventions for young people, first, I feel like every young person is at risk, no matter who they are and where they are in the world. Like one bad decision, one whatever, can cause a spiral, right? And it's hard to come back from that. And I think about the mindset of our young people. And so when I think about the kind of intervention that you are providing, which is, we know, especially when we think about crime in the city, is a lower percentage of young people or younger people, right, that are committing more serious crime, or that are on that kind of on the cusp of, they're going to go one way or the other. So when I think about the interventions that you have, and I might have missed this in your presentation, how many do you currently have on staff? And could you tell us just a little bit about what their training is?
Sure. We currently have in-house 4 part-time interventionists, and then we also partner with the Columbus Urban League and also Community for New Directions, and they each have 2. So there are 8. I'm sorry, that was the first part of your question. What was the second part?
How are they trained? So how are they trained to go out? How are they trained to interact with the community, with families, with the different partners that we have? Especially when I think about how you start to break through and build that relationship of trust with young people, which is something that takes time to do. So what does that training look like?
Great question. We are in the process of even legitimatizing or attempting to legitimize the work, because we recognize that our interventionists have a skill set that we can't teach and that it's invaluable. And so unfortunately or fortunately, they are able to do work that most people cannot do. And it's exactly what you're saying, is to be able to connect very quickly with participants that may or may not even want to connect with us. And so what I'm able to do is nothing near what an interventionist that has that skill set and that lived experience can do. So legitimatizing that is something that we're working to do. One of the things I have requested in the budget for next year is some training from a gentleman, Dr. Akil Bashir, out of California, who does some apparently very good intervention gang work. So he'll be coming out actually next month to get going with that. But really, it's a matter of understanding what our interventionists already know how to do, because it isn't something that's professionally trained. Taking our skill set where some of us are professionally trained and kind of marrying the two. And so as we've been going since April, we're understanding what that looks like. And so we're working together hand in hand. For example, I'm doing intervention work with one of our interventionists right now because maybe he doesn't know exactly what all the resources are out there or what that connection looks like, but he can get the guy to come to the meeting. And so he can have some conversations with the person, and then between the two of us together, we can get them linked the way that they need to be. So I think we're establishing what that training looks like. Some of it that we have planned to do is some cognitive behavioral training, and so understanding a thought process behind a response, the ACEs, and how to address those or how to work with someone that has experienced those. And so we're looking at all that kind of training for our interventionists moving forward.
When you talked about your budget, is that to help, is that to also increase personnel and to increase their time? Because part-time is not, that's not going to work.
Correct. Thank you for recognizing that.
That's not gonna do it.
Yeah, and so we need to, what we initially started, small, so that we can kind of see what it looks like, and then with an intent to duplicate across the city. Obviously, we're following the activity, so we are moving across the city, not really staying in one area of town, but it's not enough to have a significant impact at this point. So yes, we're looking to have additional people. One thing overall is it relates, our interventionists right now through the city are contracted. And so it's those contracts that are only up to a certain amount of time. And so in order to pay them a rate that we believe is even close to what they're worth, we have to keep it at a part-time hour. So there's some background issues that go along with that. And again, without those backgrounds, they wouldn't be able to do the work that they do and connect with the folks that we work. So we value that. And so we're working and we'll continue to work to try to understand how we can create situations where they can come on with the city, have benefits and all the things that people would appreciate and be able to enjoy as we professionalize and legitimatize their work.
Sure. Thank you for answering those questions. Chair, I have one other question, and this is for Director Pisciotti. I think it's for Director Pisciotti, and this is a big question, and I'm not sure if we can answer it specifically at this juncture, but we can get closer to an answer. I think, it strikes me that we have all of these different strategies, right? And it feels a little bit like, it's like we have marbles on the floor, right? Like we're all working these different strategies. How do we work together to really understand what is working so that we are putting the right efforts in the right places, right? Because I think that repeatedly we hear in a lot of these hearings, we hear and we see numbers, but how do we know, not in like headlines, but how do we know that we are really moving the needle? And how do we know the strategies that are really working together so that we can bring those to center and really start making investments in the right strategies at the right time?
Councilmember, that is a big question. And I think what I could say is all of these departments work together in this work. And I can also say that we're starting to catch up in the realm of technology, where the different applications are using a software called Penelope, where we can really keep the stats and figure out what things are working and what's not. I feel like more so than any time that I've worked in the city of Columbus, that there's a lot more cross-departmental cooperation and collaboration. So I feel like the departments are working together to make sure that the work makes sense and that it's being done the right way.
Thank you for that. And again, it's something I think there's something in powerful vulnerability for us to say this is a big problem. And we're not always going to have all of the answers. We're going to have strategies, and it is going to take all of us. I mean, when I look at this, when I look at council chambers today and I see so many different segments of the community that are represented here, again, that are doing this work, you know, my consistent question is like, how are we bringing that to center? So we are all working in concert together, because I believe that there are so many strategies that are working, right? And there are kids that are going to need so many different things. And so how are we meeting them where they are? But at the same time, doing that with intention, with the things that really work, right? So we're not just throwing out like numbers of what we're investing in or like numbers of kids, but we're really looking at moving the needle and making a change in Columbus and making a change for the better. So it's just something that I think we consistently have to ask ourselves. And it's okay to not know the answer now, but to be working towards the answer, because I think all of us are frustrated and tired and sad. And, you know, I think at a time now where everything feels very heavy, I think these are the right questions for all of us to be asking of each other and to be pushing harder to do better all together. So thank you, Chair.
Councilmember, if I can chime in on that.
Sure.
That was one of the main charges of the Columbus Public Health when they recommended that the mayor create the Office of Violence Prevention, was that we did need a body to serve as that coordinating piece for all of the separate strategies that we have going on. And so that's one of our big tasks. In my presentation, I explained that we hired 3 community relations coordinators just in August, and they have been hitting the ground running to make relationships not only with our interdepartmental anti-violence resources that we have going on, but also community organizations that are funded by the city. And so we have a strategy, I explain it like a 3-tiered strategy or 3 rings, where we're focusing on really trying to understand the landscape of what the city is offering through our own departments. That would be the first ring. The second ring would be what the city is funding that are not necessarily city department programs like what you heard today, but programs being run by places like Urban League or, you know, Community for New Directions that we are funding. And then that third ring that we consider is our community organizations that may not be receiving funding but are still doing significant work in the anti-violence landscape. Our community relations coordinators are building an inventory. It's a huge undertaking, but it is our goal is to build that inventory so we know exactly what is out there first and foremost, and then taking a deep look into budgets, where things are, you know, where money is being spent. Is it being spent according to best practices? What are the measurables coming out of that? So certainly not a task that we take lightly. It's a really heavy lift, and we anticipate it's going to take some time, but that is something that we are significantly invested in. And we've already started the work. Even when Dr. Lunsford and I began, we started meeting with all of the folks that you've heard from today to really understand exactly what programs they're running and how those programs are impacting our community. So we are happy to work with everybody up here and anybody else that has a voice in this matter.
Councilmember Brown.
This is a very general question, but how would you evaluate the relationships that exist with regard to the courts? They make a determination about these young people getting back out of jail or going to jail. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being excellent, 1 being poor, just in general, your perspective on that, sir.
With the current relationship with the courts, out of First Amendment activity or out of juvenile crime?
Juvenile.
Well, I sit on the juvenile diversion committee along with the juvenile judges. So I personally have a relationship already with all the juvenile court judges, and it's a pretty solid relationship that I'm able to call them or text them at any given time, and we're able to solve a lot of problems. We are much better today. Where we are is much better than we were 2 or 3 years ago when we had a spike in stolen cars and spike in Kias. Now, we still have a spike in stolen cars, but our ability to make phone calls on a first-name basis with judges to get problems solved and address issues with youth violence is better than where it has been in the past. And could it be better in the future? Absolutely, but at least we're in a position where we're constantly trying to seek solutions together as a group in order to address youth crime, particularly around stolen cars. And we still need to seek answers between ourselves and the court of what to do with these kids who steal multiple cars in a row but are not committing, homicides. And so that in between is a problem that still needs to be solved.
Thank you. And Director Turnage back there, you talk about job readiness program. What's the relationships with the unions? I mean, we're building Intel, we're going to build chips, and we're doing all this stuff, but young people still seem to be unemployed. We don't, what about plumbers, electricians, those kinds of job opportunities, CDLs? Are we working with some other folks to try and assist these young folks so they have alternatives as opposed to trying to rob people?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Councilman. That is definitely a great question. And part of what we plan on doing with our expansion of our job readiness program will include that. For example, we were able to internally, working through Columbus Rexon Park, the skill set with our maintenance and our maintenance in our trees, and as well as in our cleanup and teaching then our youth how to actually participate, but also to utilize those type of those equipment is a skill set that we were able to provide the youth. But yes, sir, as we continue to grow in this program and we are actively going out into our communities and developing relationships with our external partners, such as Intel, such as our any one of our local businesses also when it comes to the training that is needed to work in even our factories that are also increasing and are developing opportunity for our youth to work there while working through our job readiness program. And in addition to that, they also would be investing into their retirement at that age of starting with us, which is 14 years old.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to pick your brains on some of these subjects. And now we'll move into our guest community speaker section, and kind of an interesting aspect to this, ask Rachel Finney, the Chief Executive Officer of Columbus Humane Society, to come up to the podium to share a little bit about, you can bring your furry friends as well, to talk a little bit about their domestic violence programming.
Good afternoon, President Hardin, Chair Remy, and Council members Padilla and Brown. I'm Rachel Finney. I'm the CEO at Columbus Humane. I'm joined this evening by board member Leslie Blevins, who is also from the city of Columbus, our Chief Humane Agent Jessica Scott, and Major Case Agent and Senior Agent Sean Dundar. We also have guests with us, as you can see. I would just want to commend them for being incredibly quiet and patient during the testimony. We have kittens. Dennis, Haley, and puppy is Ginger. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you this evening about how Columbus Humane is helping to keep all Columbus and Franklin County families safe. I made two bold choices this evening. First is that none of my presentation will show you victims of animal cruelty. That's not to say that we don't experience it significantly in our community, but I chose happy, smiling faces for you. My second bold choice was to assume that you would be able to hear and understand me when I have adorable, upstaging kittens and puppies. The mission of Columbus Humane is to fight animal cruelty, help animals in need, and advocate for their well-being. But make no mistake, we are not just an animal welfare agency, or very much a human service agency as well. Founded in 1883, this is our 140th year of service to our community. We initially started programming to protect women, children, and carriage horses. Our legacy has grown, and we now serve more than 20,000 animals a year. Generally, we make between 5,000 and 6,000 visits investigating animal cruelty, abuse, neglect, abandonment, and organized animal fighting in Franklin County. We serve 30 to 40 species on average every year, and we have 70 staff members, more than 35,000 hours of volunteer service in our community. Keep in mind, we are a private nonprofit organization. Again, we don't forget the human animal in our services. Our core protection programming, specific to the topic this evening, of course, is animal cruelty investigations. We are the lead law enforcement agency investigating those crimes against animals. We also offer Safe Haven for Pets, which is very specifically to serve the pets of survivors of domestic violence so they can seek safety and be reunited with their family. More on that in a moment. Our organization employs social workers and works extensively to provide counseling services to every member of our community with pets. We offer 2 comprehensive veterinary hospitals, one at our shelter and a brand new location on the south side of Columbus called the Essential Care Center. Of course, we also offer intake and adoption for homeless animals, but again, that's just one service that we provide at our organization. For cruelty investigations, our jurisdiction is all of Franklin County. We are in the field 365 days a year. Yes, that is a chicken. Between 83 and 86% of our call volume does fall within the city of Columbus. The only other agency with jurisdiction for these crimes would be Columbus Police. If we did not do this work, they would be the only ones who could do it in our state. Again, we investigate animal cruelty, abuse, neglect, hoarding, abandonment, and organized animal fighting. Dog fighting and cockfighting is prevalent in our community, though mostly is underground, and many community members are not aware. We enforce sections, ORC Section 959 and some specific city codes. It's also important to recognize that we provide veterinary forensic services. So while we can provide all of the care and treatment that a general private practice could in veterinary medicine, many of our cruelty cases are actually won in our veterinary hospital, where our very skilled practitioners are able to determine not just the illness or injury that an animal faces, but how that crime may have happened. We average about 1,200 animals coming in through animal cruelty investigations annually. It's important to note that we serve many thousands of animals that are not admitted, because it is not our first priority to walk into a property and seize people's pets. We go first to try to stabilize that family and help them be successful and have safe, healthy relationships with the animals. There's a human in humane. 70% of our neighbors have pets. More than 106,000 pets live in families in Franklin County experiencing poverty. Animal abuse is highly correlated with interpersonal violence, family violence, and child abuse. 88% of homes with abused children also have abused pets. Often our neighbors are more willing to report a concern of a crime against an animal, thus allowing us to intervene often as the first agency responding. Humane agents are mandated reporters of child abuse as well as elder abuse. And we know from extensive research, not only nationally, but also in the state of Ohio, that families experiencing domestic violence will either refuse to leave or delay leaving a dangerous situation because they fear for what will happen for their pets. And we know why. Our agents, as those first responders, see what happens when pets are leveraged by their abusers to hold family members hostage, because pets are family. If we refuse to consider the entire family, then we will miss the opportunity to serve entire families. Safe Haven for Pets program was created originally in 2006 as one of the nation's first programs to provide temporary free boarding and veterinary care for the pets of survivors of domestic violence. Again, the intention is that a family can seek personal safety while their pets also have temporary care and housing. All of the veterinary care, vaccinations, spay and neuter, microchip, everything is provided for free while the human family members get reestablished in safety. We partner extensively with Lutheran Social Services Choices program, had the opportunity to consult on the design of their facility, and in 2019, we began housing animals at Choices, where Columbus Humane offers 2 staff members every single day of the year. Sheltering is also available at Columbus Humane's Animal Shelter. The font this is showing up in is really remarkable. We not only provide, of course, the veterinary care and that temporary sheltering for pets, but we also provide food, go-home supplies. We pay first month's rent and the pet deposit for any of our program participants that have been successful in securing permanent housing. Lastly, I just want to share with you that the Essential Care Center, that brand new facility on Columbus's south side, is on South High Street. This is our recognition of the extensive needs of our animal population in the community. Unfortunately, the work of animal cruelty investigations can be positioned as essentially criminalizing poverty, because we know that a majority of our cases are actually neglect, and many of the families in our community want to provide outstanding care to their pets but aren't able to afford it. At the Essential Care Center, we provide very heavily subsidized veterinary care. We are the only low-cost sick and injured veterinary care program in the metro area. We get more than 200 calls an hour for services at that new location. We offer free pet food and supplies and distribute 15,000 pounds of pet food and supplies each week. Again, trying to make sure that our community has resources so the prosecution of an animal cruelty case is the last resort. And we also offer a workforce development program, training veterinary assistants at this hospital where they're working with clients and patients who could not otherwise afford care. Again, we offer social workers and wraparound support. As a reminder, we are a nonprofit agency. We have a budget of $7 million. More than 70% of our income comes from donations from individuals. Less than 25% comes from fees for services like adoption. And less than 5% of our work, including law enforcement, comes from government support. Certainly, we benefit from in-kind support and supplies for our services. I thank you for having me here this evening and our very quiet, well-behaved guests, and I welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. And first, let me just take a moment to thank you for joining our efforts at Latitude 525 last year in December. That was something that I arranged and worked with Rachel to bring in, and that was, everybody was covering so many things in that tragic situation, but no one had really thought about the pets. And I thought, maybe this is an opportunity, and we didn't know what the impact would be. Fortunately, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. However, your support and involvement was integral to the overall success of the family and the people that were there. So I have a question on the funding that you receive from the city. How much is that, and is it enough?
Yeah, Chair, thank you for the question. Last year, our funding was increased to $275,000, and that is the same amount that was included in the public safety budget for 2024. We did make a request of the city at $325,000. I have materials here that explain our programs and services and also the request that we made. That funding would keep us consistent with a coverage about 31% towards our animal cruelty expenses at a very baseline, which is just over $1 million. That does not include care for animals that are not dogs and cats, any treatment for illness or injury for the animal victims that come in through cruelty investigation. That is the very minimum basic care, and it's about 30% at the fully funded amount.
And what type of support do you receive from the county?
We receive an annual allotment of $35,000, and that number has not changed in over 2 decades.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from my colleagues before? All right, thank you so much. We appreciate the presentation.
I was here for your review. Thank you.
Next, we have another great community partner. Want to bring Dominic Jones up, the co-founder of Legacy Youth Academy, to talk about your summer youth programs that you've completed and funding that you've received.
Good evening, everyone. President Harding, Chair, Council members. Like I said, I'm Dominic Jones, co-founder of Legacy Youth Academy. And I'll try to breeze through some of the highlights from our summer, even up to currently. So this summer, we were successfully able to register 2,430 youth, ranging from ages 5 to 15, which was a 14.3% increase compared to last year during the same registration period time. So what we saw was kids just actively come out just a little bit sooner than what they normally would, which was great for us. So up to date, we are currently at a 97% retention rate from June 1st all the way up to right now. So once kids come to us, they're staying and they're participating in everything that we have going for them, all the activities and all the events. So that's good for us. This summer too, we co-hosted a Stop the Violence March and Peace Rally in the Linden area. We had over 3,500 attendees to that. And we were also able to capture a little over 1,000 signatures from youth ages 10 to 18 who are pledging not to use firearms or any violent measures as a means of conflict resolution. So, for our first one with a true emphasis on how do we pull away some things from that event, that was awesome for us. We also partnered with CBR. We had those individuals out there. We had the Mothers of Murdered Children out there. We had several other community youth organizations that helped collab with us in that event. We also this summer were able to get over 400 wellness exams, which is a 15% increase in what we were able to do last year in partnership with Nationwide Children's Hospital. So not only part of the health and safety and wealth of our kids, typically, they aren't going to the doctor and health is really not preached. But again, with Nationwide Children's Hospital and the great team over there, we was able to get a little bit over 400 kids wellness exams, also immunization shots going back to school. And so we appreciate them for that. Heading into that same timeline, going back to school, we were able to partner with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. We also Cuts on Avenue Barbershop right there on Mount Vernon Avenue. And we were able to give out over 300 backpacks filled with school supplies. We also gave out 120 free haircuts to young men as well. And we fed everyone too, so that was also a great event. Part of this summer too, we dropped our Tackling the Books program. It's truly just an emphasis on reading and literacy and overall academic performance. So to date, with the current grade check sheets that we have 36 kids right now enrolled in that program that have a 4.0 GPA. So for us, keeping those kids accountable, and these are also athletes too, and so in order for them to continue, playing, et cetera, turning in grade check sheets, having above a 2.0 for the ones who are able to play sports is truly what we've been looking for. We successfully hired 14 youth and young adults as well, ages 16 to 26, which again was an increase from last year. So, we're happy about that. I think anytime we're employing our youth and giving them experiences, opportunity to make money, it helps keep people off the streets. It helps reduce violence as well. I also want to, again, I think just put an overall emphasis on this summer for us. I think you kind of talked about it a little bit. We've been extremely collaborative. Our mindset this summer and even till today is we have to be more collaborative and have more of a collaborative mind state, and it has to be more collaboration over competition. I think that our youth providers in our city have gotten to a state where sometimes everyone's seemingly fighting for dollars, et cetera, that we don't necessarily want to come to the table and say, well, how can I help you? Or what's working for you, et cetera, because everybody wants this, or everybody's grabbing that, or everybody may be scratching and clawing for the win. So I think that what we've tried to do this year is literally bring in a lot of other community organizations. And I see a lot of them that's here in this room right here to say, hey, how can I help you? How can you help me? I had one conversation with Ms. Molly, and next thing you know, CBR is at a few of our events and they're integrating into what we do. And I mean, it's just more of a collaborative effort because we're all serving the same kids, to be honest. And so I'll also say that, we bought some concerns because, our events and different things that we do, because we have so many kids and families, sometimes safety is just one of those things that worries us a lot. And so we had these conversations with CPD. So I want to give them specifically, a thank you to Assistant Chief Potts, Assistant Chief Bacher for hearing us out. And so they've been able to provide officers from Moonlight which was funded, and also shift them to our events during their time frame. So again, we're still collaboratively working with one another to help keep people safe, and I think that's been great, right? So our families, if you go out and you interview, you just talk to our families, and some of the officers did too themselves. Our families just felt so much safer just from having them around, just from sitting in the cruisers outside. Like it or not, people tend to just act differently when they can go to jail, and people, when police are sitting out there, honestly. And so for us, again, I think, where we would like to improve at is really our relationship with CCS. We, out of the over 2,000, close to 2,500 kids that we serve, we're in the 90 percentile of those are CCS kids. And we necessarily don't have access to probably the facilities that we need to keep certain things and events here. There's red tape there, just with the process and old ways of doing things. And so if we're going to be, again, more collaborative, I would just hope that we could build a better relationship there, because again, the kids that we're serving ages 5 to 15, we're offering service and activities that they don't even offer. So if our kids aren't doing that, it's like, well, what are they doing? Again, they come to us for experiences and opportunities that CCS doesn't provide, but yet they go to CCS schools. So eventually these families become your families at the high school level. So we can be more integrated at the adolescent and at the youth level, at the grade school level. I think that we'll be better off. And then too, we've been, we partner with Community Immersion too. We've had some great events with them, and really just trying to get our kids, integrated and used to and communicative with our officers at a much younger age, and because these are the same officers that's eventually going to police their communities. And so, ironically, when officers are coming out now, we're saying, hey, yeah, I was in immersion, you came here. So we're building those foundational relationships, but so we would like for that to continue as well. So that's kind of a quick update on us.
Well, thank you so much for the great work that you've been doing with our youth. It's been impactful. And I want to ask you a little bit about that CCS relationship, what attempts you've made to work with them, because I very intimately understand the bureaucracy over there.
Yeah, we've made several attempts. I think that we haven't had anyone fully ready to pull the trigger on things that, it's been good talks, but nothing has fully materialized into things over the last few years. If you come to some of our events, you'll see that we're on side fields. Our athletes are, on side areas where it's really hard to secure. So when officers are coming out and they're giving reports to say, hey, there are 3 or 4 different entry points here. It's hard for us to be safe on this atmosphere. Well, why can't you guys go over there and play? Well, and if the answer is because of the grass, we don't want the grass to get messed up. It's like, are we putting safety over potential grass? Are we asking our families to pay taxes for facilities that we can't really use? But yes, it is. I think it's one of those things, again, where individuals just haven't been ready to put their name on it and really sign off, because typically they haven't, right? And then obviously there's been some changes over there. So then one person drops the ball, but we're going to keep fighting that fight. But that's kind of where it stands.
Well, and I'm here to help too. I think the world of Dr. Chapman, and I think that she really brings a fresh vision into the school system. And so I also believe that those are our buildings. Those are the taxpayers' buildings, and that when people are so challenged with actual physical brick and mortar space and fields and et cetera, that we need to become more collaborative with our school system to make sure that programs like you can utilize those spaces, and the principal should leave out the door at the end of the night and hand the keys off to the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, and that sort of thing, so that we can program right in the communities in which we need to serve. So you have my commitment to help make those introductions and try to help alleviate some of that red tape.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Councilmember Barossa de Padilla.
I just wanted to acknowledge all of your work, because I think, even from the time that I've been on council, thinking about the services that we provide our young people, I grew up in youth programs, and it was youth programs that changed the trajectory of my life. And I think, in understanding, I have student athletes, and understanding that those grade academics go with the athletics, right? Even when that's not your favorite, right? But understanding that, you know, in order to get this, you have to get that. And that's a life lesson, you know, and I think like continuously being around people that are offering our young people other choices, which I think, you know, this is a key part of what we're talking about today, is that, you know, people need trusting, our young people need near peers, they need trusting adults in their lives that are giving them alternatives to the things that they may be seeing and experiencing, and they can see a different future for themselves, you know. And even if they're not going to become a professional athlete, that's not the point. The point is that they're doing something that they love with people that they trust and people that love and believe in them. And that changes the trajectory for them. And so the more that we provide for them when they're in that space, the better off they're all going to be. We're all going to be, right? So I just want to commend you on being able to grow that, being able to now employ young people. Like, it's those little sparks of ideas that we see and we understand, probably even from our own life experiences, that we see that we grow on top of it. And I also want to say the collaboration, I don't think it's like our community organizations not collaborating. Sometimes we get in our own way. I think it's like government and the way that it works and the way that the system is set up. And so I just wanted to say that, because I think that sometimes it's community, they know how to community. Right? And so I see that and I acknowledge that. So I just wanted to say, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you continue to do. And, you know, this is why this council invests in the programs that you and so many other folks in this, in council chambers do, because we see the growth and we see the impact that it's having on our young people.
Appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Thanks for all the work that you do. We have a small change to the agenda. Mike Primo was not able to join us today, but thankfully we have Darlene Scheid, the Youth Development Director from Community Development for All People, to share more about the work that they are doing.
Hello, council members, and thank you so much for making the adjustment and having us here. And thank you for the investment in the young people of the South Side. So I'm here to speak specifically about the All People's CDF Freedom Schools program, which council members have been investing in since 2021. So this is our third summer of having some CDF expansion on the South Side. And since then, we've been able to expand to multiple sites. We have gone from a community-based, Council President Harden, you in particular helped us secure some community space when Columbus City Schools were not allowing folks back in 2021. Since then, I'm happy to report we have reestablished collaborations with Columbus City Schools and are back in Siebert Elementary and Lincoln Park Elementary, serving scholars 5 to 14. One thing that has been really incredible this year in particular with that expansion, that we were able to expand programming and opportunity for some of what we call our legacy youth. Our program has been in operation since 2012, and think about, 5 to 14, what happens after 14? It's been a dream of mine for several years that we've finally been able to put into fruition this year, that once you age out of the program, so to speak, you can then be employed by the program. And we were able to do that this year. Last year, we had a lot of volunteers. Teen volunteers getting service hours for graduation and things like that. This year, we were able to employ 8 teens of the South Side who worked and then volunteered for us in the afternoon. So they were scheduled in the morning. They stayed all day and were facilitating team buildings. They were coming up with programming, doing de-escalation with scholars, doing those social emotional skill building, as well as receiving training for some of those beyond school skills, like interviewing, like college preparatoriness, exploring what kind of career they might have outside of high school. And so we were able to do that. In addition to our 8 employees, we had 6 14-year-old volunteers who kind of came late in the summer, but were able to do 125 service hours with us. After that, which, it's not enough to just hire some teens, we were looking at how we can make more of a difference. And scholar voice is really important in the CDF Freedom School model. And so we were talking with our scholars in the after-school programs in the spring, and they were identifying some areas along the Parsons corridor that actually were on our property that were blighted and kind of looking shabby. And through some of that scholar discussion, and we collaborated with some companies here in Columbus and created a pocket park right next to our Connection Center on Parsons Avenue. And all summer, our scholars worked with some horticulturalists to learn about the industry and what kind of careers they could do, learn about landscape design, implement that design, and then maintain and plant those plants all summer long. And we culminated that with a community mural, which we have started, and our after-school program is going to finish this fall. So it's been an incredible summer of service and deeper community with our scholars and our families. And we thank you for your investment in helping us make a difference on the South Side.
Well, we certainly appreciate the work that you do and so many aspects on the South Side. I would like to ask, what has been the impact of our funding and what does it mean for this program in particular?
Yeah, sure. For us, in the Freedom School space, right? Like City Council does do a lot of different program areas at CD4EP in the youth space in particular. It means that our scholars and our families get to be together no matter where they are. There's a lot of displacement that is happening on the South Side, but we are able to open our doors and no matter if they went to the West Side, they went to Hamilton or Groveport, they can come back and re-engage in the city and reinvest in the community that they established with. So when I say that Freedom Schools is kind of a legacy program, out of the 128 scholars that we enrolled this year, 82% of them have been with us for 3 years or more. And so those families, we have parent support groups and we have kids who might go to different schools, but they're coming back together and they're in that Freedom School community every summer. And so we continue to build community and familiarity that lasts all year long, not just in the summertime.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? All right. Thank you so much for coming down. All right. So now we're going to move into the public speaker portion. And many of these people are great partners with us as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing their testimony this evening. We have 9 public speakers, 1 piece of written testimony. Our first speaker is Reverend Ashay. If you'd come forward and you have 3 minutes to speak, your name, address, and any organization you may represent. And then on deck is my friend Melissa Thomas St. Clair.
Greetings. I'm Minister Kujenga Ashay, 1119 East 16th Avenue, Columbus, Ohio, 43211. I live in South Linden. I'm the elected chaplain and the elected benevolent secretary for the Baptist Ministerial Alliance of Columbus and vicinity. Reverend Joel King is our president. I'm also a member of the Concerned Linden Clergy. I'm a founding member. Pastor Charles Tatum is our president. I'm also a member of the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. Dr. John Coates is our president. I have a vested interest in this hearing. I was going to be here last week, but it was a mix-up with WebEx or whether it was live, but I'm here this week. One thing that I know for certain is that the founding fathers of America were believers in God. On the money it says, "In God we trust." And correct me if I'm wrong, but I see that there's not a religious or spiritual component permanently in any of the programs that we're talking about. I mean, you come to the churches, you come to different organizations, but it would be good if you had a paid clergy person or a number of clergy persons in a number of these programs, like with last week with Adam H. and all of that. You've got the psychologists, you've got the psychiatrists, you've got all these kind of folks. But you don't have clergy who live in the community to come counsel the people. A lot of the people believe in God. They go to church, synagogue, mosque. So you could have a Jewish rabbis, you could have Muslim imams, you could have Christian ministers that would go with the police, go with Adam H., go with all these people to kind of counsel and cool down some of these situations. That would be a good thing. That's my recommendation for some of the programs that you already have going. There's no spiritual or religious component that I know of. Now, may be one, but I don't know of it. So you can correct me if I'm wrong. Also, you have the bully pulpit. People now nationally are talking about ending taxes on guns and bullets. Well, I'm saying increase it. If a bullet costs you $1,000 instead of $1, how much shooting would there be? So you could put an excise tax at the manufacturing level. You could put a higher sales tax at the sales level on bullets, because it's really the bullet that kills the person, not the gun. It's bullet violence. There are bullet wounds in that person. So I would suggest that you take that to the Franklin County, to the state, to the national level. That conversation, you have the ability to do that as city council members. You can't do it, I know physically, but you can do it. I have a vested interest in all of this. My brother was shot and killed by 2 off-duty Columbus police officers in 1982, Calvin Lewis Reynolds, Keith Burke, good family friends were shot. But for every person that's been shot by maybe a police officer is controversial, you've had thousands of people that have been killed in the last 40 years, African Americans, black, brown, red people, by each other. So basically, we have to focus on the majority of the cases that are before us, which is the violence in the communities. So those are my 2 suggestions. Use the bully pulpit to raise taxes against the people that are saying, well, end taxes on guns and bullets, and then at the same time, add a spiritual and religious component to all of your programs, because the people in the community do have some kind of faith-based beliefs, and I think that would help de-escalate a lot of the problems. Thank you for your time, City Councilman, and I really appreciate you, and I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Pastor. We appreciate you. Council President.
Just really quickly, thank you, Mr. Ashe. Just this year, Council Member Bankson, I believe, started a faith-based grant program, not obviously to push any particular faith, but it was an acknowledgement that the faith organizations and nonprofits have the ability to reach young people. And I think that it granted out 500,000, don't quote me, is it 250,000 to 500,000 to faith-based organizations who are doing community engagement work. So we definitely follow your thinking, and certainly your thinking on how we can work with this extremist state house when it comes to gun violence. So, sir, thank you.
Thank you very much, Melissa Thomas St. Clair, and up after that is Gino Tucker.
Good evening. I think I should have been after Dominique in that section, but we'll try to keep it under 3 minutes. If I hear the bell, I might keep going just for a little bit, because I want to just say good afternoon and good evening, President Hardin and all the city council members. I have a math problem for you. 175 plus 205 plus 139 plus 124. Anybody do the mental math? I'll save it for you. 643. That's how many mothers who have lost their children to violence only since 2020. At this point, I'm confident that the work that we are doing in the support service, crime prevention, crime intervention, you see I have to speak fast, crime intervention, community engagement, community outreach, wraparound services, and resource management is evident and apparent to each of you and our community at large. I don't think there's not one person here that we haven't worked with, including all of you. I want to take this time to thank my loyal mothers in this organization for their immense work in using their pain to purpose for each of the services that we provide. All of our mothers tirelessly and consistently, as volunteers, work to reduce the crime in our beloved city. It would be understandable if we decided to relocate because of the pain that this city's violence reoccurs in our system on a daily basis. But yet we stay, and yet we fight, so that we can fight for you, for your households, and for households behind me. We don't want another mother to have to adorn their bodies in orange. Orange representing that they've lost somebody to violence or lost somebody to gun violence. I'd like to highlight just a few of our efforts to support the city's efforts in crime reduction just recently from January to current. MOMCC launched its youth program, My Future is in My Hands. This is our 10-year program that follows 25 youth and encourage passion identification, planning for the future, and decision-making to preserve their future. We partner with all kinds of community advocates and community members, such as Moms Demand Action, to support our monthly meetings. Our goal is to create vision boards that will give our youth tangible items to update and change as the years progress. We follow them through another program called our Mommy and Me program, where we have these mothers who mentor our youth, not just at-risk youth, but youth that are on the right path. So often those youth get forgotten because they're doing the right thing. But we got to remember, when you're doing the right thing, you get located with the right boyfriend that's not doing the wrong thing, you end up doing some time. We launched, I talked about the Mommy and Me program. In May, MOMCC and our youth division supported 15 events, including a trip to Cincinnati to support the Cincinnati Right for Peace. From May 1st, I hear you, from May 1st to May 31st, MOMCC, we're in the streets of Columbus. In June, we supported 23 events, most of them being yours. Several city events, we had our youth out here, one right here, who had exposure such as the Wear Orange Illumination. We joined Mayor Ginther in promotion of gun locks and Rise Up C-Bus and all of the other entities that the people behind me offer and ask us to be there. And we always say yes. July, MOMCC hosted a Locks of Love, where 21 new families were able to put a lock on the Ridge Street Bridge. Go visit. We also supported Mayor Ginther as he held a press conference on the State House lawn. August to September, MOMCC did not slow down. August, we supported 11 citywide events and traveling to Dayton to support our friend Dion Green in the Dayton 9 mass shooting. September, we supported 13 citywide events, including Columbus Public Health Remembrance Dinner and Vigil hosting. We also hosted a search for Imperial Stewart. We were out there for hours looking in bushes, under things, everywhere for that young angel. We're now supporting that family, unfortunately. October kicked off with MOMCC hosting the largest opening of Fall Family Fun Festival in Candy Table Hop. You're going to watch a 1-minute, 39-second video. There were 1,500 people at this event, along with my friend Remy. 1,500 people came to this event, and there was zero incident. Zero incident, only engagement. I'm going to tell you this. What do you look forward to? Oh, by the way, we were able to give away 15 Chromebooks, a basketball hoop, 100 free costumes, 2 32-inch TVs, and some full-size candy bars, and a safe environment to play. You should have been there. You missed it. It was a great time. We had a resource fair where many of my friends behind me were present. In the future, we ask that you see our youth, you see our value, you see our worth. These women, I asked them to leave their careers, leave their children, leave their grandchildren, and put their pain on display, and I give them nothing but love. I ask you to increase our budget. Now, we're here to go big for you, for us, for them. We have received $75,000 from the city of Columbus each year. We have put 100% of that money back into the community. We ask that you see our worth and allow us to give stipends to these mothers so that they are able to leave out in the community and have us be sustainable. I put in 70, 80 hours into this organization without complaint. But I am a full-time teacher. I'm also in my PhD program. I am a mother and a grandmother. And sometimes when you hear how much is going out to other entities, we are the boots on the ground. We are here to fight for you. Please increase our budget. I'm going to ask you for an exact dollar amount. We'd like $500,000. Don't gasp, just understand. We will put it to good use. Please watch this 1-minute and 39-second video and understand why we're asking. Hi, it's Melissa with Mothers of Murdered Columbus Children. And along with my co-founder, Carla Harris, we are out here at the 3rd annual Fall Family Fun Festival and Candy Table Hop. Our hope is that with engaging activities, engaging experiences, we can bring our communities together to stop the violence. to take resilience, determination, and spirit-led fortitude. But with us doing it together, we can overcome. Please continue to engage so we don't have to have law enforcement enforced. That is what our goal is. We want to love each other so we can stop killing each other.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. We received.
Gino Tucker, you're up. And up after that, it's Rachel Lustig.
Thank y'all. First off, I would like to say thank you, City Council, Councilmember Bankston, Shannon, Harden. Y'all have been here with me since the beginning, and I appreciate the support. We started this organization in 2020, and since then we have served over 350 young people, teenagers between the ages of 13 and 19, with 100 of these teenagers being in our direct programs, either our school year or summer programs. The other 100, 250 young people we have engaged with a minimum of 3 times, either in our in-school program or some of our community events. Over this past year, we served over 283 teens between our in-school, after-school, and workforce development program. This past summer, we worked with over 40 young people. We had an 82% attendance rate and a 95% completion rate. None of our teens have been involved in the justice system, been victims of crime, or passed away during the time of our programs, and they all have passed to the next grade level. As I stated, we are very appreciative of the support that City Council and the great city of Columbus has provided to us. And as we know, as we heard the police and other entities say, there is so much more to be done. That includes us receiving more monetary support, as well as resources and services that are available through the departments and additional services or organizations that's connected to the city directly. We have no office space. That is something that we're in dire need of. We have no home. We are virtual. We rent out whatever space we can get whenever we can get access to the space. And it's nothing to put the money in the budget, but we want to make sure that this space is somewhere that our young people can call home, that's safe and comfortable for them. As I always say, I can tell you anything and everything about this organization, but I would like for y'all to hear directly from some of our ambassadors who have been implemental and just the bomb at any of our community events y'all seen this past year. They have planned, budgeted, hosted, and implemented every one of them. So I invite y'all to ask them questions, not me. As the programs are here to support and impact them, I'm just a vessel to do it. So I open it up to y'all.
Well, first of all, why don't you all introduce yourselves and tell us what school you go to?
Hello, my name is Ariana, and I go to Fort Hayes and Linda McKinley.
My name is Jalen Taylor, and I go to Columbus Downtown High School.
My name is Brielle, and I go to Linda McKinley High School.
My name is Miguel Tucker Jr., and I go to Reynoldsburg High School.
So any one of you can answer this question, but tell us what this program's meant to you personally.
Remember Us Urban Legends means a lot to me. It means family, youth, it brings us together. I used to get in a lot of trouble back then, but when I joined the program, Mr. Gino gave me a safe space, someone to talk to, someone to be here for me. They helped me with school. They helped me connect with people, and it's something that I want all youth to come in and join us and be one of us. Thank you.
So even though this is my dad, like, when I first joined, I was 12 years old, and I didn't really know nobody and had no friends or nothing. And when I joined it, I learned personal development skills. I learned how to be professional and how to public speak. I also met a lot of people and developed a lot of traits that I didn't have before.
I'm a little nervous, but I don't really have nothing to say, but I just want to thank Mr. Gino and everybody else working with him for giving me this opportunity, and yeah, thank you.
They basically summed it all up, but yeah, thanks.
So I have a question though. What are you studying at Downtown High School?
Cosmetology.
Cosmetology, yeah. Miss.
I just wanted to commend y'all for coming out here because I know it's not easy, and I know that you're on TV. I don't know if you knew that, like literally on TV, not just this TV. So I know it's a lot, and you're being brave, and thank you. And you're some of the most important voices today because I think this is a lot of adults talking about young people, but when young people talk about young people, that's when we need to really sit back and listen. And so thank you all for being here. I actually am about to head to your school in just a second for a community conversation led by young people so that I can learn and that we can all learn about how we can do better and how we can serve you better and do better by you. So thank you for leading the way. Thank you for coming down here. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for being part of this program. And also every young person that you touch, everybody in your circle, you are going to make better because of the experiences that you've had with Mr. Gino. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was great.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good rest of the day.
Thank you too,
I
Gino.
also left reports for our summer program for y'all to take care of.
Great. Rachel Lustig and then Jennifer Chamberlain.
You know, being here makes you proud to be a part of this community, doesn't it? Thank you, Chair Remy, President Hardin, council members. Blessing to be here with you. I'm Rachel Lustig, President and CEO of Lutheran Social Services. Honored to be here. My story begins with some really tough words. Strangulation, rape, beating to the point of unconsciousness. You know, Jennifer didn't anticipate facing these violent realities as a newlywed with her first child on the way. It started small. The kind of thing you excuse, you rationalize. After all, he's the father of your son, and he's under a lot of stress. But the abuse escalated, and all too soon, that baby, now a young child, is witnessing life-threatening violence in the room next door. We know this extreme story. We're seeing it. 200% increase in the number of homicides caused by domestic violence in our community. Lutheran Social Services Choices is here to provide Jennifer and others like her the resources that they need to be safe in the moment, to get out of that space, and to transform their lives. To do that, we need your support. I have 5 things to say to keep it in that 3 minutes. I'm proud of what our community has done to step up and respond. I want to share what LSS has done in a very short period of time. But I also have to tell you that costs are going up. And as that's happening, public support is decreasing. Now we're taking strides to be creative and figure out how to continue to fund this program, but we need your help. So those 5 points. In our community, we went from 51 beds, and at the end of this year, we're going to have 168 in our community center. That's awesome, right? It's meeting the need. In addition to that, Choices expanded our services. You heard from Rachel Finney talk about the kennel, but it's also about providing a more trauma-informed care model, enhancing clinical services, putting a medical center on site. In the first 3 years, when we moved from our smaller facility, pre-COVID, our costs went up 69%. It was to serve that many more new people. But now in a post-COVID era, our costs are continuing to escalate as we continue to serve more. Since COVID, we have served 46% more people. These numbers are all in a flyer that you will have access to. It's in the written testimony that's been included. But we're asking for your help. We're asking for you to continue to help us with the operating support that we so desperately need to keep people safe and to build their next tomorrow. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much. Not even really a question, just, we've seen those stats too, that such a large percentage of the homicides this year have been at the hands or caused by domestic violence. And I think you being here tonight is a really important part of telling this story. And as a community, when we funded the expansion and the build out, we were proud of what we did because we knew we were serving more. But now we know also that we need to do more because the need is greater now. And so just thank you for the work that you're doing. And we look for ways to find to be supportive. So just thank you.
Thank you. I echo those sentiments as well. So thank you for everything that you do.
Pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Jennifer Chamberlain, and then Cecil Ahad.
Good evening, Council President Hardin and Chair Remy, and the rest of the, well, you're the only one left in the room. Jennifer Chamberlain with the Far East Area Commission and the Greater East Side Coalition. So over the last 2 years, the Far East Area Commission, the Mid-East Area Commission, and the Greater Southeast Area Commission have been taken part in a series of workshops developing skill sets in peace and conflict resolution through nonviolent collaborative communication. At the same time, the Greater East Side Coalition held meetings seeking to understand and address youth violence and its impact on the Greater East community through a series of Zoom meetings with experts from government, health, judicial, and educational systems, learning elements of youth violence, the impact of the judicial system, generational trauma, poverty, and school disconnection. We've developed relationships with school counselors, family ambassadors, teachers, and administrators. We began to regularly attend report card conferences, clap-ins, graduations, school resource fairs, and other school events to show further. We want to continue the workshops on nonviolent collaborative communication in coordination with the family ambassadors in our area schools, and then progressing, bringing in selected students that the family ambassadors pick with their family as support structures. And it would be our hope that this would provide students who may be starting to travel down a wrong path, or as Councilwoman said, the cusp of leaning one way or another, that we would be able to provide those students with a means of sharing their experiences, a space for empathy and understanding, and offering them a learned ability to redirect anger and frustration. So we would like to ask City Council for help with funding for these workshops that we would commit to, that the area commissions would commit to, as part of the effort of violence prevention and reduction. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Thank you very much. We appreciate the testimony.
And I'd be happy to send everything to you.
Sure. Appreciate you. Thank you for your work on the commission as well. Cecil Ahad and then Keisha Hunley Jenkins.
I'd like to greet the group, council, President Harden, and everyone else there. My good friend over there too, Mitchell Brown, great man. I'm here for a couple of reasons, and I'm also here to stand in for Pastor Lamar, who's also, we work closely together in the work that we do, and he really wanted me to make sure he passed on our appreciation for the help that the city has given for our summer program, now going into the fall program, and dealing with, right now, about 40, 50 youth in the fall camp, and mentorship, job readiness, conflict resolution, and all those things, what we teach them and what happens there. And I want to go back to me, myself, and training that we had back around when we realized it was a gang in Columbus when Mayor Coleman asked us to get involved, asked a black man to get involved in this back around 2003. And we did. And then we went further than that, got into the ceasefire training. We traveled to Chicago, learned about violence interruption, gang intermediation at Moritz College. A lot of different training we had. And we came back and presented this to the city, but it didn't get, the mayor did not fund our program that we presented to the city, but the Attorney General's office did. And they gave us a grant for $50,000. And that's when the APPS program was created that the mayor wanted at that time instead. So our job was to, and violence was to desist the homicides that was happening on the south side at that time. At that time, and we had researchers doing work on that, Deanna Wilkinson, Ohio State professor, researcher, and what we found that in 43206 in Columbus, there was more homicides in that small area than compared to anywhere in this country. Now you can hear with Chicago, 500-600 homicides, but 7-8 million people live there. We're talking about a little small area, which 43206 was, and the number of homicides that was happening back then. So we went on, and with our funding we had, and we reduced those homicides in 1 year down to 0 in 1 year, 2013 to 2014. If you look back where it was, and then things moved. Well, with the help of working with the Columbus Police and the court system and other. So we did that. We changed the whole community. So we're just here to share that we have the knowledge and the know-how and all that to help change that, to desist a lot of this violence and gun violence that's going on. I work myself personally with young men every day. At least probably there's 20 young men outside of the 50 people that Pastor Lamar has at the church every day. So we know what to do. We know what the problems are. So with some time in the future, I'd like President Harding know, I've reached out to him, Mitchell, senior boss over there. We worked with him a number of years, so he knows. You know, we're just not whistling. Sometimes we wonder why we haven't been reached out a little more to, just for the intelligence that we know and have, from the young people to the old people. Older young men we still work with. So we're here and we want to help the city, and we want to talk and learn more about what we've done already and still willing to do, then we're here for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cecil. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
Thank you guys for being here.
Keisha Hunley Jenkins, and then Vicki Thompson Sandy. Doctor, I didn't realize. Sorry.
Hi. Oh, it's very loud today.
We do share the same barber, though.
You know,
right?
I mean,
You know.
keep it clean. All right, so good evening, everyone. Chair Remy, President Harden, and also Councilmember Brown, great to see you. Also the staff, thanks for rocking with us tonight. I'll make this quick. I had a whole bunch of remarks, but based off of what everyone shared tonight, I just want to build on that. As you know, I serve as the Executive Director of the Boys and Young Men of Color. Thank you for your support. It's been a long time coming, trying to get boys and young men of color actually included in policy change. And so this year, we are launching our focus groups this month to hear from 12 focus groups of boys and young men of color and also their parents and important adults in their lives. And the questions are general in nature. So unlike everyone who spoke a lot about program, which is tremendously important, we're trying to get upstream into the policy space. And the way that we see that, right, not only do we want to bring you data that can give direction for not only policy but program, we also want to use that data and share it publicly so that programs could see it on a public dashboard. Our questions are generic. They're more about what's working, what's not, what would you like to change, and where would you start? Because we also want to bring data where there's backing for the changes that you all would like to make to address longstanding issues of institutional, structural, and individual racism. I won't get into all the stats about violence. We know about that. We know anytime. I wanted to start tonight by asking you to think of a time where you felt unheard, disrespected, and how frustrating that was. And then think about that as a young person, when we're often powerless in our situation. We know that violence is an antisocial reaction, a symptom, right, of not being heard, not being seen. So certainly structural racism, redlining, zoning, and things of that nature put us in environments where that's the case, where we don't have access to healthcare, we don't have high-quality schools accessible to everyone. All of those things that help somebody grow up and develop and maybe respond with thought instead of reaction, right? And I know we're all guilty of reacting. I know I probably did it about 10 minutes ago. So that said, I wanted to share a little bit about our work, and thank you for the funding. We will be asking questions about violence. We also receive funding from the Franklin County Commissioner's Job and Family Services, where we will conduct 50 interviews with young people 18 and older who have been involved in gun violence. They're either adjudicated or they're still going through that process, so we can bring some real-time data about what they're experiencing and why. The last thing I'll say, as our data is shaping up and as we're doing reviews of the literature to see where to start until we get our localized real-time data, all the things that everyone said about the programming, particularly what stood out to me was earlier, somebody, I'm sorry, I don't know everyone's name yet, but somebody from the Office of Violence Prevention spoke about, someone spoke about relationships, and I think you all spoke about sort of positive propaganda. And I think that's something that's really important for our community to not just be tied to mental health or violence, but in general. What if we saw billboards that said things like, you are worthy, you have everything you need, you are enough, but in a way that speaks to young people. I think that could be uplifting to our community, much as we think about public art. What is that positive messaging that's just focused on who we are and what we're capable of? The last thing I'll say, because you know I'm a huge proponent of mentorship, a lot of what we heard today was about mentorship, right? The CDC identifies it as one of the top 4 ways to prevent violence. Again, feeling heard, valued, all those things being plugged to resources. A mentor serves as a first responder and a connector. And also we know people who are mentored turn around and mentor others. And so that is something that we want to ask administration and others to look at funding, is how do we do citywide mentor recruitment so that Gino can serve more students, so that all these folks can serve more people. So I'll wrap it up. We're really excited about our work. We'll be back in the spring to share our findings. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you for tackling this issue.
Thank you, Doctor. Council President.
Dr. Hunley Jenkins, could you talk about the role that data plays in supporting this work? Is there a citywide opportunity for all of these different organizations to tap into the same type of data and use those data points?
Absolutely. I think that, when we start to say data, you either love it or your eyes glaze over, right? But it's very important to have the correct data for whatever you're trying to solve for, right? So if you're trying to create a household budget, my income doesn't matter, right? It's your income. And so we want to make sure that we are using the right data. We're not using compliance data to try to build program. We want to make sure, again, we get the data from the people so we can bring you not only direction, but the support that you need. So in our mind, data is hugely important. And it's, as things evolve, it's something that we'll always want to collect. As long as Boys and Young Men of Color, our collective is here, every year we will gather data so we can keep a pulse on the community. And we will make it publicly accessible so you can even see by location where certain themes are coming up. So for us, we want to be in that space where we can provide the tools and the guidance necessary for you all to make the decisions, not only in the programmatic space. Part of this data, when it comes back, you'll be able to see what are we funding and what do they say is important. Maybe we should make some shifts there, right? But also then it's that two-prong approach, policy and program, that is going to get us to where we need to be. So,
Thank you, Doctor.
thank you so much.
Vicki Thompson Sandy, and then Laura Downing.
Good evening, council members. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. My name is Vicki Thompson Sandy. I'm the president and CEO at the Buckeye Ranch. And my colleague, Camilla Twyman, is here with me this evening, who runs the programs I'll be speaking about. We know the data, but according to the CDC data from 2021, violent and premature deaths have increased for youth ages 10 to 24 since 2007. And since 2014 for homicide. This includes suicides increasing from 6.8 deaths per 1,000 to 11 suicide deaths per 1,000, where homicide rates doubled from 2016 to 2021. Additionally, the suicide rate for youth ages 15 to 19 increased from 2009 to 17, and the homicide rate for this age group surpassed the suicide rate in 2020. Data from the National Youth Risk Behavioral Survey provides additional context. And in 2019, nearly 22% of the youth reported being in a physical altercation in the last 12 months. And 13% of them reported that they carried a weapon 30 days prior to the survey. There are various contributing factors to youth violence, including trauma that we've heard this evening, lack of resources, social determinants of health, and mental health challenges. The Buckeye Ranch remains committed to serving the needs of youth and families in this community. Our programs serve youth impacted by violence, whether they are victims, they are offenders, or they're both. One of our evidence-based treatment models, called multisystemic therapy, MST, has a specific focus on youth involved with delinquent behavior. MST believes that families and communities are essential partners and collaborators in this treatment. And through 50 years of research, we have found that delinquency is determined by multiple risk factors. Those include a situation where they have low monitoring, but high conflict in their family. They're associated with other law-breaking peers. They have low school achievement and are dropping out, where they have low support, but high rates of people in their community moving in and out, and where they have low verbal skills and social skills. We have seen youth positively impacted by our MST therapeutic program and similar other treatment programs at the Buckeye Ranch. Specifically, we also have a specialized program for Somali youth as well. And so in those programs last year, we served over 500 youth, and between 86% and 95% of those youth served, depending on the program that they were in, did not experience an additional arrest. Despite the success, staff have also observed, and they have experienced barriers in addressing youth involvement in community violence. And we know that because our families struggle to find affordable housing. They struggle to increase their own need to move when they are struggling financially. And many families also live in food deserts and do not have access to nutritious food. And when families are focused on their own basic needs, it's hard for them to enter into a therapeutic relationship. We also know that in our school system, we do not have adequate resources to help some of the kids with their complex needs. Their caregivers are working non-traditional work hours, which leaves kids unsupervised. And so having enriching activities where youth can walk to them is one of the things that we feel very strongly about. We really believe in the work that we do with youth and families in our community. We also know that there's not a simple solution to the problem that we're talking about this evening. We need more resources in our community to better address those risk factors that I spoke about across multiple systems that impact our families and youth so we can prevent violence. Thank you for the time tonight. I'll answer any questions if you have about our programming.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the testimony
Thank you so much.
this evening. And last but certainly not least, Laura Downing.
Thank you. My name is Laura Downing. I'm a social worker, and I manage the Victims of Crime program at Community Refugee and Immigration Services. My team speaks Arabic, Somali, Nepali, Hindi, and Spanish, and we walk alongside survivors of all victimization types, most of whom speak limited English. We meet them at hospitals, at their homes, sometimes in jails, libraries, McDonald's, sometimes at grocery stores or public parks, if that's the only place they're not being monitored and they're safe to talk to us. We make plans with survivors, plans for safety, for court hearings, for paying rent the next month, or for the burial of their children and loved ones. We help them make a plan to call the police department if that's something that they choose to do, which most often they don't. But if that is the only option left to them, we make a plan first. And that isn't always easy because when survivors call the police, we cannot predict what will happen. When will they arrive? Will they believe us? Will they make a report and arrest? Will they ask for their social security number or about their immigration status? But the biggest question for us is, will the officer use interpretation? Will they send a bilingual officer? Will that officer truly be bilingual? Will they call for a phone interpreter? Or will they tell the survivor to call someone who can interpret? Will they use Google Translate? Will they use a child, a neighbor, the abuser, or the abuser's brother? Or will they just muddle through, then give the address for the prosecutor's office and tell them to go there if they want to press charges? And by the way, if they go to the city attorney's office, they'll need to take a friend to interpret for them too. There's no way to plan for this. I often say, you have the right to interpretation when you call. If they say no, you can demand that. But the reality is that most people don't feel comfortable making demands of the police officers. What they want from them is safety and to be believed. So before that call is made, we have to plan for the aftermath. What is the plan for when the police leave and it's just them and their abuser again? And when their last option left, just left them in more danger than ever. Sometimes they don't even know what happened. They only have their abuser or their children to ask to try to explain what just happened. I know this isn't the first time you've heard me speak on this topic. I'm not sharing anything new. I've been to these hearings before over the years. I'm just here to let you know that we're still waiting for the Columbus Police to meet their legal obligations for providing language access, which is essential and just a basic part of serving the refugee and immigrant communities in Columbus. And also, you should give MOMCC their $500,000 because they deserve that.
Thank you very much. On the language access, that is now in code. If you're not finding that to be in compliance, with the conversations with the department, you need to let us know, let Director Pisciotti know, because that is paramount to serving our people and something that I champion personally, but our people should be able to speak to any language through this policy, and so I want to know about it if that's not occurring.
Yes, and I think a lot of people aren't comfortable making complaints if that doesn't happen. You know, it's rare that somebody who's already in a very vulnerable position feels comfortable. We often offer that, you know, and offer to help them through that process. But, you know, they don't want to make a complaint about an officer that they might need to call again, who might be the same officer that comes next week when they need them. So it is a challenge to, you know, address the issue through complaints in that way.
Understood, but I'm suggesting that, Chris, you know, you guys can reach directly out to our office. We will make sure that, you know, we work through that with the chief to make sure that people are complying and understanding. I mean, we're waiting for them to get cell phones so they can have a direct access to the language access line, those sorts of things, so.
Yes, we are also waiting for them to get those cell phones. I think that would be one step. I think another important step is just them understanding that they need to do that. Because often when we talk to police about it, they don't think that that's something they need to do in all situations, that it's just an option. And even though it's critical in working with victims, it's also critical in any time they're interacting with community members. You know, outreach programs, prevention programs, when they're talking to people they suspect of crimes, because those previous interactions then, you know, help someone decide if they want to interact with the police again later, you know, and how comfortable they are with them. You know, so if they've had that negative interaction previously, they're not going to call them for help the next time, you know. So it's really just a basic part of developing trust.
Understood. Thank you again for your testimony. Are there any final comments or questions from my colleagues this evening?
You know, just thank you again, Chair, and thank you to the departments for being here. We're very grateful for the work that is being done. I think hopefully one of the messages that we send with tonight's hearing is that there are serious investments and serious work being done in violence prevention, that for us, keeping our community safe is a throw the kitchen sink at it. Where we, of course, use police officers, but we also use community organizations and new techniques as well. And so, you know, we look forward to working with you guys over the next couple months as we really get into budget season. Because there was a lot of advocacy tonight for more funding for community groups, but even for some of your programmings internally in the city. So we just look forward to those conversations and how we can continue to make Columbus safer. Thank you.
Well, as you can see, there was a myriad of different organizations that spoke this evening. This just scratches the surface, right? I mean, the investments that we've made as a council, the investments that the mayor's made and the administration have made with all these organizations is substantial. And there certainly is a wide variety of programming that has been invested in this city. We look forward to the Office of Violence Prevention to, you know, kind of harness these organizations and look collectively what we're doing across the community. I've said this for a number of years now, but we need a website that, you know, outlines every single organization that we fund, because the public should be able to see that. The transparency should be there so that we can see that we fund, you know, choices. We fund, you know, all of the different organizations that were here this evening. And, you know, again, technology being woefully behind in the city of Columbus, this is something that I will continue to champion, because I want to be able to tell a resident that, you know, you just go to this Office of Violence Prevention site and you can see all the different programming that we fund in the particular areas. And you can click on their link and find out more about what they are actually doing. So kind of my challenge to, once again, publicly Rena, you weren't here when I've said this in the past, but and the director wasn't here when I said this in the past, but I'm saying it again now, and I'm saying it publicly. So I want to thank everyone who joined us today for their robust presentations, the conversation over Columbus's violence prevention and reduction efforts. Thank you to the directors, department representatives, community partners, and presenters. As the chair of public safety, I'm really incredibly proud of the work and the investment that's been done so far, and excited for the work to come ahead and the growth that we will experience. Thank you to Council President Hardin for being my co-host for these important public safety hearings. Thank you to Councilmember Brown for sticking it out this evening, but also Councilmember Barosa de Padilla and Council President Pro Tem Dorans for joining us this evening. Thank you to the council team members who made today's hearing possible. My team, of course, Lucy Frank and Kaylin Pittman, Council President Hardin's team, John Tanous, Linda Copa-Bianco, Mike Brown, Director of Community Engagement, Stanley Gates, Senior Legislative Analyst, John Oswald, our communications team, Jose Nyam, Brad, Mark Carter, and the entire CTV team for their assistance in preparing for this hearing. And last but not least, thank you to the residents and stakeholders who attended and participated today. I hope you all stay safe and have a great evening. This concludes today's hearing.